Hmm. Yo, you finished the build! Yeah, buddy. Give me a rundown on the case. So this is the NZXT H5 Flow RGB. And let's do a little pan around so we can take a look at this bad boy. The build came out absolutely beautiful. We went all white with everything. So let's go over some of the features of the case. So in the front, we've got a mesh panel. On the top, we've got a mesh panel. And then we've also got our power button. We've got a USB type A, USB type C, and a headphone jack. And then on the back, it's solid up top, but we actually have mesh down below. We can see our PSU and all of our cables. Then on the back, we have ventilation for our rear fan. We have ventilation that goes down here. Our PSU sits down below. We've got our PCIe slot covers and our GPU. And then we've got our motherboard IO over here. We've got a tempered side glass panel. Then if you look down here, it's actually perforated on the side and then also on the bottom right here, this little slanted part. So once again, we can see our PSU and all the cables. And this lets fresh air into the bottom fans and then into our system. So let's go ahead and take off some of these panels and then I'll show you more. So the H5 Flow RGB will actually come with NZXT's newest F360 core fan. And if we get a better look at it, it's actually 3 fans grouped into one frame. So really cool design. And there's one cable that powers fan speed and RGB. But you can see that's all one frame, but it holds 3 fans. So that's really cool. It will come with one non-RGB rear fan, 120 millimeters, but I have swapped it out for one of the fans that came with my AIO because I wanted RGB all the way around, but it will come with one fan in the rear. It's just not RGB. We can fit up to eATX size motherboards in this. I currently have an ATX size board. It looks absolutely perfect in there. We can fit up to 2 120 millimeter fans on the bottom. And you can fit up to 3 120 millimeter fans on the front or up to a 360 millimeter radiator. On the top, you can fit up to 2 140 millimeter fans or up to a 240 millimeter radiator, which is what I'm currently using. So that's super clean. Looks great in there. Let's go ahead and take a look at the back. So here's the cable management for the build. We've got a ton of tie down points. Here is kind of our pass through for our motherboard cables and for our USB type C for the top panel. And then there is our USB. And then our front panel connector is also down there. We've got tie downs, we've got little channels for everything. There's my NZXT controller. The interesting thing about this case is because it sits flat, the power supply fan actually has to face upward, because if it's facing down, then it will be completely choked off. So the fan has to face upward. So that's really interesting. It does come with a little drive caddy, which I have removed because I'm not using any drives like that, any SATA drives. So super interesting case. What's all in the build? So we've got an AMD Ryzen 7700X CPU, and that's being cooled by an NZXT Kraken Elite 240 millimeter AIO. We've got an NZXT B650E motherboard. We've got 32 gigabytes of Team Group T-Create RAM at 6000 megahertz. Under this heatsink right here, we've got a WD Black SN850X. It's 2 terabytes. Our GPU is the PowerColor Hellhound 7800 XT. Our fans, in front, we've got the included F360 core. In the rear, we've got an F120 core. On the bottom, we've got an F240 core. And then we've also got an F240 core on our AIO. And the front is intake, the bottom is intake, and the rear and the top are exhaust. And then for our extensions, We're using Asia Horse for our GPU, our motherboard 24 pin, and our CPU cables right over there. And then for our power supply, we've got a Superflower Lead X7. And it's a little bit overkill with 1,000 watts, but I just thought it matched the build so well, so I decided to go for it. Final thoughts? So the build in this case was very straightforward, and I actually thought it was really easy to build in. I didn't run into any issues or hiccups along the way. Just planned out my build in the order I wanted to install the components, and I had a ton of room for cable management, and I actually still have more room, so fairly easy in that aspect. The only thing I would recommend is before putting in your AIO at the top, if you're planning on running one, I would highly recommend plugging in all of your motherboard connections first. Because once the radiator and fans are up here, it is very hard to get to the top of the motherboard. So just an FYI there. But other than that, very straightforward. This perforation on the side is really interesting. When the RGB is fairly bright, you can actually see all of your cables and your PSU. So this is going to kind of expose some people's cable management. So being able to see all this actually kind of makes me want to make it look a little bit better. So really interesting that you can kind of see everything in this build, including the power supply and all the cables, because normally that's hidden by a shroud. So really interesting design. But overall, I like the case. I think it's worth checking out if you're in the market. They do make a non-RGB version as well, and they also make one in black. So check it out if it's something that interests you. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like the video, and comment what you think. Peace.